Talking with famous people.
Host Eric here. Welcome to Talking with Famous People. I'm going to go through this really quickly. This video is going to be about the subject of how cognitive functions relate to time and space and how they relate to people and objects. Okay? So, my basic idea here is this, that your cognitive functions, thinking, intuition, feeling, sensing, I'm not going to show you this paper because it's just going to slow me down. Thinking is a systems navigation function. That is to say, an execution function in which one executes decision-making processes upon existing systems in order to navigate them. Intuition is a systems creation or development process, and I would also point out that that thinking does correlate with execution. In contrast, intuition would correlate with learning. So intuition is a learning and a creative process, and thinking is a processing and execution process. Okay? Both of them are either time or space neutral. So you can be a thinker in a time fashion. If you are, that's introverted. Because, why is it introverted? Well, you're executing thought on that which retains its potentiality. Remember, space is fundamentally static in nature. Time is fundamentally fluid in nature. Okay, so an introverted thinking is a time-focused orientation, and it is executing thought on that which retains its potentiality. Sorry to repeat myself. And it is in opposition to, say, extroverted thinking, which executes thought on that which expends its potentiality to achieve results. So extroverted thinking is interested in results. It has to expend the potentiality of the models it develops in order to achieve those results. That's its primary interest. Extroverted thinking is not interested in the models themselves for their own sake. Whereas the introverted thinker is interested in the models themselves for their own sake and prefers to preserve their potentiality rather than sacrifice some potentiality in order to achieve results. By nature, because we're time-oriented people, those of us who have introverted thinking. Okay, well, at least if it's one of the main functions. Some of us are totally time-oriented and some of us are totally space-oriented and most of us are a mix, okay? So, intuition, on the other hand, is opposite. So, for intuition, if you're extroverted intuition, that's a time orientation, and if you're introverted intuition, it's a space orientation. And the reason for this, again, it has to do with stasis and fluidity. So when you are intuiting externally, you are embracing fluidity. You're looking for potentialities and new ideas and stuff like that, right? When you are intuiting internally, you are instead finding truths. So the internal intuition is conclusive in a way that the external intuition is not. That's why the internal intuition correlates with space and the external intuition correlates with time. Okay, so we see there that if you are introverted thinking and extroverted intuition, then you correlate with time on both those vectors. Now let's look at the feeling and the sensing functions. Feeling is humans as time objects. That's what feeling is. In other words, emotions do not exist except as time objects. That is to say, in relation to thoughts or behaviors or something of other people. You don't feel emotional when a rock breaks another rock, because nobody has emotions who's being affected, and therefore there's no reason to have any empathy, right? So feeling emerges from empathy first and foremost, and from basic human needs. And I cannot put my feelings in you in the same way that I can put my thoughts in you, right? I can say a couple of sentences, and you can memorize those couple of sentences and repeat them back to me. You have internalized and successfully learned my thoughts. You have now, my thoughts are your thoughts. We cannot do that with emotion. There is no way to do it. It is non-transferable. It is non-fungible. You cannot symbolize it meaningfully. We have lots of words for it, and none of them do it any adequate justice. And it's irreducible is what it is. It's irreducible. Okay, next is I want to talk about, so we talked about extroverted thinking being space, introverted thinking being time, extroverted intuition being time, extroverted thinking being space, feeling being about how we relate to other human beings. If you have extroverted feeling, you relate to them fundamentally as it's about their feelings. And if you have introverted feeling, fundamentally it's about your feelings. People don't like to just cut to the chase, but basically introverted feelers are selfish. And extroverted feelers are pushy, okay? Extroverted feelers are pushy, introverted feelers are selfish. Okay, so, and then the sensing thing. This is the one area where if you have introverted sensing, now keep in mind, sensing is a space thing, right? But if you have introverted sensing, what you are doing is saying, I just can't deal with space on its own terms. So I'm gonna take space. I'm gonna make them into time objects. I'm gonna try to make them as static as possible. I'm gonna call it my memory. That's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna gather all these experiences. I'm gonna make them into time objects. I'm gonna make it my memory. It's as timey as you can possibly deal with your space objects. Okay. So if you are somebody like me who has, or if you are another ENTP, then you have this problem too. Okay. And I want us to understand this because I don't think people understand it. We have no way of knowing who we are. We have no way of believing our identity is an actual thing that has any sort of constancy and this is why we're constantly searching for answers and looking for the future, right? Because we don't feel, I talked to an ISFP. This chick was like, I've dated two of them. I've gone on a date with one of them and I dated one of them very briefly. Anyway, they have no ambition. They have no ego. They're so satisfied with whatever it is. When I talked to one of them, she said, "What's your concern?" She's not worried about dying. She's worried about feeling pain at the end. Okay, well, great, good for you. You're so satisfied in your life, and etc. Well, of course she is. They're all introverted. Everything. Of course, they know who they are. They have no problem with it. We have no fucking idea who we are. I have to make this shit so I know who I am. Who am I? I'm that guy who screams at the at the camera all the time. Okay, that's better. At least it's clear. At least I'm clear who I am, right? Because I've got extroverted feeling. I'm worried about other people's feelings, not my own. I've got extroverted intuition, which means I'm doing systems creation, development, learning on the outside world, be it objects or people. Okay, not on me. I mean, I'm doing it now. I'm doing it now because my thinking is very strong. My thinking function is strong. It's telling me I have to, right? But the introverted thinking, that one, time-oriented, sure. It's not necessarily about yourself, though. That's the thing. And because everything else is extroverted, your motivational shit, which is your third slot, that's extroverted feeling. You're motivated by other people, not by yourself. Then it takes a while to get around to directing that thinking inward. Until you have to, because you keep suffering so much. And it always catches you off guard at the last second. It's like somewhere underneath my level of awareness, I'm sure I'm suffering, and all of a sudden I realize it, right? But I have no idea it's even there until I burst into tears. And oh my God, I'm miserable for 5 seconds. And then I forget about it again. I guess it just drops below the threshold. I don't know. That's ENTP life. That's not the right button to push to stop this video.
Talking